Hello, I'm Manjul and I'm back on popular demand. In the previous videos, we talked about data and databases. I made them because I wanted to cover a lot of jargons that we use in day-to-day life. Our next topic of discussion is SQL, but before we move forward, I'd like to establish a few points or break a few myths. Now, this is for all of you who are from non-technical background or are stressed about coding. Although SQL is a language, but it's not a programming language like Java, C++, or Python. It is a query language and it's much like speaking English. In short, it's very simple and I'll try my best to make you feel comfortable. Now let's move on. SQL. It stands for Structured Query Language and it allows users to communicate with relational databases and perform a lot of functions like retrieving or storing data. Let's visualize. Here we have a user who wants to interact with the database. He writes a query which can either modify to store data or he can request or retrieve some data out. SQL statement is sent to the data and the required operation is performed. Our next topic is types of SQL statements. Now I know this can be a little boring, but it is really helpful in understanding what can be done using SQL. Broadly, SQL statements can be divided into four parts. Number one, data manipulation language. These are used for retrieving, storing, modifying, or managing the data. Example, select, insert, update, or delete. Number two, data definition language. These are used to define the database structure or the schema of the tables. For example, create and drop. Number three, data control language. These are used to create permissions as well as access control to the database. This is mostly used by the database admins. For example, grant, revoke. Number four, transaction control language. These are built for performing a logical unit of function within the database and uses one or more of the above mentioned SQL statements alongside to work. For example, commit and rollback. Mostly, you'll be dealing with DML and DDL statements. Let's start with the basic SQL statements, their use and syntax. Please note that SQL statements are not case sensitive, so you can type in whatever way you want. A basic SQL statement. This is like the SQL version of displaying hello world. It gives you a good feel, but it is useless in practical life. A basic SQL statement comprises of two parts, select and from, and they work exactly like their names. Select, as the name suggests, it is used to select data that you want to see from the database tables. The from statement, it is used to identify which table you want to access from the data. Syntactically, they look something like this. Let's write a basic SQL query using one of our previous tables and let's name it customer demographics. Here we are just selecting one column out of the table and output looks like this. Let's try and select multiple columns from the table. Seems simple, right? Trust me, it is. Since I want to keep it short, I'll be talking about a few topics throughout this video and you'll have to learn it via Google. So first thing I want you to Google is what is level of data or what is degree of data. Moving on. Have you ever said to your parents, if I score more than 95% marks, I want something in return? Like life, SQL comes with conditions too. Let's see how can we add them. Most common method is where statement. It is used to extract only those records that fulfill a special criteria. Syntactically, it comes after the from statement. The syntax for the where statement looks something like this. Let's take an example. Over here, we are filtering out our customer data based on their gender. Does anything look interesting in the output? Now let's talk about what can be used and what cannot be used in the where condition. A lot of mathematical operators can be used within where condition. The common ones are equal to, not equal to, greater than, lesser than, etc. You cannot use aggregation functions within where condition. Google about between, like, and in functions. And also, what are the aggregation functions supported in SQL? Next up, data sorting. And this can be done using order by statement. It is used to sort the result set based on one or more columns. By default, it sorts in ascending order, but you can also sort in descending order by using this keyword. Syntactically, it comes at the end of every SQL statement. The syntax of order by statement looks something like this. Let's see this example where we are using our transaction data and sorting the result set based on price. Can you sort in ascending and descending order in the same order by statement? Google it. Next topic, data aggregation. If I ask you how many people are there in your group, you won't tell me their names, but you'll tell me the total count. That's called rolling up the data or data aggregation. This brings us to the group by statement. It is used to divide data in sets based on one or more columns. Expressions that are not encapsulated within an aggregation function must be included in the group by clause at the end of every SQL statement. Confused? Let me simplify it for you. You have to use group by statement every time that you use aggregation function like sum, average, count, etc. Sounds tricky, isn't it? Let's make it even simpler. As a thumb rule, always mention the fields in group by statements that are number 1 in your select condition and number 2 not included in your aggregation function. Syntactically, group by comes after where clause. And the syntax looks something like this. Let's see an example. Over here, we are rolling up our transaction data at customer ID and item level. Now a quick question for you guys. Do you think the expression x plus y is same as sum of x plus y? If in our select statement, we have columns like x, y and x plus y, do you need a group by for that? Now we already know that aggregate functions don't work within where condition, but we can still filter them using our next statement, the having statement. Having works similar to the where condition, but it is used with aggregate functions. Syntactically, it comes after group by clause. The syntax for having statement looks something like this. Let's take our previous example where we are rolling up our transaction data at customer ID and item level. In this, having is filtering out all the records where the sum of price is less than or equal to 800. Can you guess the output? So that's it for this video. In the next part, we'll talk about joins and many more interesting things. Stay tuned and be awesome. Bye bye.